Today's podcast is sponsored by Fire Facilities Incorporated, expert engineers, designers, and manufacturers of steel training towers, burn rooms, and mobile units that are all made in the USA. Welcome back to 3-Point Firefighter. Today's guest is Kyle Romagus. Now, Kyle is a 19-year veteran with East Montgomery County Fire Department. He oversees the training there as Battalion Chief. He's in love with engine work, and that's not too hard to figure out. He also owns and operates Smoothbore Cartel. He teaches engine operations for FD Tactics, CF Tactics, and he's part of the engine cadre for Oathkeepers. Now, he's also the admin of Engine Company Resurrection, but his main goal is to spread knowledge about engine work to anyone that'll listen. I love his mantra, which is leave the department better than you found it. Brother Romagus, welcome to 3-Point Firefighter.
Hey, how you doing, man? I'm glad to be here.
Thank you very much. Now, let me ask you something. I try to do topical. I'm trying to get my podcast a little topical. So let's just say we're at FDIC, okay? And I'm one of the hosts, and you're one of the guys that might get this award at FDIC. I'm on the stage, and then I say something to you like, let's say, so here's Kyle Romagus, who loves truck work and fog nozzles. Would you get up on the stage and slap the living shit out of me?
No, I wouldn't slap you. I'd probably say that you're probably talking about another dude, though. Yeah, that's a different dude. But no, I wouldn't slap you, man.
Well, see, we should tell Will Smith that. He should have a little control, don't you think?
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes people just lose control, man, and get emotional responses. That was unfortunate.
Yes. Well, you know what's funny? I've heard you talk about ego in the fire service and how once you take that ego, it can't help but be emotional at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to win an emotional argument, man. Everybody loses. You know, everybody goes down in the mud and rolls around together. So, I mean, there's no real winner of an argument. It's like a fight, you know, a fist fight. Nobody wins a fist fight. You know what I mean?
Nope. Well, so just like when I argue with my wife, I never win that.
Yeah. Yeah, you just got to find out ways to present facts and make your case without getting emotional with it, you know, and bringing negativity in it. And if you can't come out on top of a debate or argument with the facts of the situation, then you're probably not in a position to win that argument in the first place. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Now, I know you got a huge social media presence. So if you were to read some of the stuff that people comment on that, there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of keyboard warriors that have a lot of information about maybe a 2-3 second clip or a very vague question. And I know you don't mind to step in and not be a dick by any means, but you step in and kind of say, okay, well, what are you trying to say? What's the context here? Which you don't see a whole lot of responses like that from admins. So what has been some of your issues with your big social media presence and not trying to tell people to go fuck themselves when it comes to their horrible ideas?
Yeah. Well, I mean, and you're referring to Engine Company Resurrection, but I tried to form a dialogue, a consistent dialogue on that page that was positive, you know, that you didn't have to bring in negativity and get emotional and take pop shots at people, you know, and I don't hesitate to, like you said, comment on people's threads and say, hey, man, what are you really trying to say? Or, you know, why don't you bring some facts with this argument? Or you don't have to go that route. Try to coach people into a positive interaction. Because, I mean, social media is just so nasty on a lot of aspects of it, especially the fire service. I mean, we're our own worst enemy with that. But you're absolutely right. People watch a 30-second video and then have a chance to analyze it. So the running joke is people have, you know, a 3-second video and they got 3 years to tear it apart. You know, so you made a decision in a critical moment and someone happened to have filmed it, and, you know, and everybody else that's watching it has the ability of hindsight, you know, being able to see everything that happened and, you know, have a opportunity to formulate a good plan for that situation when you had a split second, you know, so everybody's an expert in some aspects, you know, but I was watching something the other day. I think it was David Rhodes on Corley Moore's podcast. He had a quote from Patton, and I'm probably going to butcher it, but his quote was, a aggressive decision made now is better than a well thought out decision, made 30 minutes later or something like that, but essentially you just want to make a decision, and everybody else has a lifetime to tear it apart, and it's unfortunate. But you just got to bring people back to reality sometimes. And I've tried to have positive interactions and coach people into having positive interactions. It doesn't always have to bring negativity.
No, the internet, I heard somebody say the internet is just weaponized anonymity. You can say and do whatever you want without any fear of retribution. And all the stuff that is in your brain that you would never say to somebody in person, you can type all day long. In one of the classes I teach, we have a series of short videos that are somewhat connected to the subject, but they're more or less after a break to kind of get everybody engaged in the next hour. And one of them I use all the time for a weekend warrior social media prep as well. And it's basically a garage fire that there's a bunch of people outside. They set fire to this garage with the door open. They're spraying a little bit of water. Then all of a sudden the garage door falls down. And I think it's in Grand Rapids Township or something like that.
Is it an older grainy, like VHF video?
No, this one's not that bad. This is not that bad. But the people in my class, normally when I play that without any context, you'll hear a group go, oh, or whatever, like, it's a big negative thing. Then I go into and I explain what's actually going on, which in the real world, what happened was they had several garages like that, and they were practicing not only a little fire behavior, but what's going to hold a garage door open better on a fire. So they used pike poles, vice grips, a bunch of stuff. And it turned out that I believe the pike pole was the best choice. So then I tell them that. We watch the video again, and they're like, oh, it's a good video. So social media is the worst. I mean, we know that. But a little explanation, a little context, and it changes everything, in my opinion.
For sure. I've got a buddy that actually has not necessarily a policy, but for his shift, he's got a piece of paper with instructions on how to dissect a YouTube or social media fire video, like what not to look at, what to look at, the lesson, how to draw lessons from it, I guess you could say. And it's actually in the Pro Drive. But I really liked that premise, because you could find yourself in that mindset when you're watching anything. You're like, oh, I wouldn't do that. Or, why did they do that? And it's like, man, you're not there. You don't have their resources. You don't know their capabilities. You don't know their level of training. They're making a split-second decision with the abilities and the mindset of what they have in front of them, and it's easy for me to watch it. The fire service is tricky because the lesson comes after the test, and we have the ability to look at the lesson prior to looking at the test. And it will, obviously if I had that information, I would make a different decision. If I knew the garage door was going to close on me, I probably would have, propped it up with something. But I use a carabiner for that. If I go through a garage door, there's a little slot in the track. So I've got a carabiner on a hose strap in my pocket. Yeah, just throw it through that little square and the track won't go through it. So lesson learned from watching videos on social media of the counterweight, because essentially it's the spring or the counterweight that busts due to heat that'll drop that door. But yeah, carabiner in that little slot, and it'll keep that track from going down.
Man, that's a good little tip. Now, you like I said, you have a huge social media presence. So let's start with Engine Company Resurrections. Tell me a little bit about that.
So that was started by me and another battalion chief back when I was a captain. So we just I've told this story before, but we used to ride around on my days off. So when I got off, he was the battalion chief on the next shift. And we used to ride around and do what we call looking for fires. We'd wander the district, looking for smoke plumes and talking about fire shit. I'm sorry, I don't know if we can cuss here, but talking about fire stuff. And that was one of the things that we talked about, because, like with the hit it hard from the yards and, all the spoof pages and the negativity that comes out of social media, really wanted a place to where people would feel comfortable bringing their issues to a forum type atmosphere, without fear of, getting beat down or browbeaten or anything like that. So we made it a private group to where you had to apply to come in, and we could boot you at any time if you started, acting stupid. But I really don't have to censor too much anymore. We built a culture over, I think this is the 5th year or 6th year for ECR. But like, we built a culture of positivity in the interactions. Debate's important, and we need to have debate, and it's okay to disagree with somebody. But, you don't have to roll around in the mud together. In order to do that. We can have differing of opinions, and we can still be friends at the end of the day. Or, sometimes we just are never going to see eye to eye, and there's always going to be a impasse that we're going to find ourselves at. And that's okay. That's relationships at a whole, that's fine. And we don't have to go to the extreme negative and take personal pop shots to find that moment. We can just decide sometimes it's okay to agree to disagree,
Mm-hmm.
But I tried to foster, and not just me, but there's now a community of people on that, because the people run that page, not me. It's the interactions between people because there's 33,000, almost 34,000 people in that group, and that's the best and the worst thing about it. The best thing is it's 33,000 opinions, and the worst thing is it's 33,000 opinions. You can't get three guys to agree on dinner, let alone 33,000 to agree on a fire strategy, But I tried to foster a good positive environment there, and I think it's successful.
Yeah, I think it is too. And I've noticed a lot of these weekend warriors too. My favorite thing is whenever I read, I try not to, the only thing I try to post really is congrats, attaboy. If it's something that I think is negative, I don't post anything that I think it's negative, because I don't know the whole story. Again, I don't have the context, right? It makes me wonder, and I try to think of that stuff, but I see no value in trying to yuck somebody's yum. It just doesn't make sense. But what I will do is, when I read some of these great shitty responses from people that don't know what they're talking about, in my opinion, if you go back and look at their profile, they've been a firefighter for maybe 2 whole years in a row. Or they're not a firefighter. Maybe they're just an EMT, but they work with fire departments. And so it's easy to dismiss people like that, which I hate to be that way. But, that's when when I see somebody, and I think you probably have said this in the past as well, fog nozzle really don't have any business in a residential fire 9 times out of 10. And when people swear by it, it's nails on the chalkboard for me, based on experience and science.
Yeah. I used to go, 10 toes deep into that debate with a lot of people, and I found that it brings up the negative connotations that we were talking about 90% of the time, because it gets emotional. It's not about the tool anymore. It's not about the physics and the scientific, explanation of the water droplet anymore. It gets to an emotional aspect. So, I try to focus more on the low pressure versus high pressure argument now. I can easily achieve that one without getting emotional. And I never got emotional. They would get emotional, because a lot of people, when they run out of facts, or they run out of data points, or they run out of positive aspects to their opinion on their side of the fence, that goes strictly to emotional, so it's like 0 to 100, and it's hard to win that one. And really, there's no winning that particular debate. There's only the small win is being able to foster a thought process in the direction of a positive outcome. You know what I mean? So, you can't really win that one, but I want you to think. I want you to think hard enough to where you can find data points that will counteract mine in that situation. And, at least leads them down the path to, start educating themselves a little more. And then they will find the answer when they run out of their data points. They'll find the correct answer. You know what I mean? And the correct answer is probably a poor way to describe it, but it's hard to dispute that one. The sprinkler head being the biggest progenitor of the fat droplet. So the most detailed and researched fire suppression tool on the planet is the fire sprinkler, and it uses the fat droplet. So, it's hard to dispute that one.
I like that. I've never even heard that argument like that before. So, we're dipping our toe into water mapping now. So one of the arguments I hear about fog nozzles, and I don't know that it's a great one. It's a good one. It's not a great one, but when people say, well, what about hydraulic ventilation? What would you say to that if you're rocking, not a 15/16, but maybe like a 7/8 smoothbore?
Well, any smoothbore, you can hydraulically ventilate. Obviously, it's not going to be as efficient as with the fog nozzle, but I can hydraulically ventilate with the smoothbore. There's a couple different ways that you can. You can either crack it to half bail, which is an audible signal of the nozzle itself. So when you're opening that nozzle, it's the loudest that nozzle will be is at the half bail or pretty close. Or you can remove the tip. So obviously it's a negative connotation with the smoothbore is to the inability to adequately, if you're going to compare the two in the amount of air that I'm able to move between the two, the fog nozzle is better at that. So that's a positive in that win column for that particular nozzle, but it's outweighed with the positives, in my opinion. It's outweighed with the fire suppression aspect of it, with the smoothbore. So, I mean, it's like, the running joke is, you're going to judge a chainsaw on how well it performs fire suppression is the same type of argument as how you're going to, judge a nozzle by its ability to ventilate. You know what I mean? It's not the reason that tool exists. It's just an aspect of it. And one definitely does have an easier time and more efficient time doing that aspect of it, but that's not enough for me personally to choose that tool for that particular, positive aspect of it,
Do you have anybody that argues that a semi-fog in a house fire is good?
Semi-fog? You talking about like power cone, like a narrow angle fog?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of old heads that do. I know a lot of old heads in Houston that swore by it, but the entire fire service swore by the power cone for a long time. And it's cool if you can get your hands on, like, let's just pick one manufacturer of manual IFSTA. If you can get an IFSTA manual from IFSTA 1 and track it all the way through to IFSTA 7, where we are right now, you'll see the reasoning why the opinions of certain eras are what they are, because the manual is doctrine, for anybody who wants to be credentialed. And these are all quote terms. And the era of when they were credentialed by this manual was it shapes their mindset. You know what I'm saying? So like it shapes their understanding of the fire ground, specifically those that don't go to a lot of fires. And that's all they have is that manual. It's the holy grail Bible of fire suppression in their world, because they don't have a whole lot of real world experience. But on the other hand, I do know a lot of very seasoned, very salty, experienced guys from that era that swore by it. I know a really experienced guy from Houston that will remain unnamed for mine and his protection, that swears by the wide angle fog. The high pressure wide angle fog is his go-to, but he has since retired now. But it's one of those conversations that you can't really win. And, you don't go into a conversation like that with a dude like that and expect to win. You know what I mean? But a guy's got 40 years in the fire service. You're not going to touch that level of understanding that he has, but as for why he chooses it, I couldn't tell you, but that's a tough one to get into, because it always comes back to the years of service. Go ahead.
Yes, I apologize. I think our connection's a little weird. I'll probably cut this little tiny part out. But what I was going to say is, as a training officer, well, you're now a training officer. So I was very fortunate to have like 5 acquired structures, and we ended up doing 68 burns over a period of 3 weeks.
Nice.
So as a training instructor, I know, right? As a training instructor, I got to see what we were teaching was, flowing and moving, straight stream, solid stream ideally, but if that's what you got, So we were practicing that, and quite a few times I had people that used a fog, a wide fog, not all the way wide, not really a power cone, but kind of in between. And I can tell you, having experienced the lack of fun being near the fire as a safety, and then them coming in with that fog, it sucks. It ruins everything. I mean, you can literally, not see in a matter of a second. Whereas if you got a good solid stream and good tactics, you're not fucking up the thermal balance as much. But my point in all this is it's all academic until you can apply it. And to your point earlier, if you're going to a few fires every year and you're using a fog nozzle and it works for you, I understand that. But then we're slipping right back into that ego. So one of the things I've asked people is, so why do you use that fog? I've never been burned by it. I've never been steamed by it, blah, blah, blah. I hear the I statements. What I don't hear is, I don't think that little Johnny in his Spider-Man pajamas on the floor would be hurt. I mean, obviously he would, but my point is they talk about themselves. Well, I'm not getting burned. I'm not getting hurt. I'm getting the fire out. Yeah. But what about our victims? What about our community? I really think, and I'm starting to realize in the past couple of years, just how ego-driven this industry is, and how important it is to not have an ego in the fire service.
For sure. I listened to your episode with Bonifield this morning. Bonifield's a good friend of mine, and he was talking about Tanaka. And one of the things that Tanaka told him was fight fire like you're naked, and a lot of guys have that separation. I can't remember whether he talked about, I know he talked about Tanaka on your episode, but
yes.
That was one of the things that he used to tell the guys is fight fire like you're naked, and that goes into the aspect of us being separated from the victim, with our thermal protection that we have. So like if you were to ask the 1920s firemen, how to perform an interior attack, because they did it was just all smoothbore back then. And the only thing that differentiated that 1920s fireman from the victim was the nozzle, So, I mean, I always enjoy being able to talk to guys who were either were pre-SCBA or were taught by someone who was pre-SCBA, and look at the similarities that we find now with the research and where it's going with the UL FSRI stuff. And it's all cyclical. It's all going back to pre-SCBA tactics, because they're finding, that, which is no surprise to some of us, that early water often is better for the victim. It's better for temperature reduction. It's better for pre-ignition of fuels or the lack thereof. So it's not a huge deal or a huge revelation to a lot of guys that go to fires, but for those who go to the 1, 2, maybe 3 structure fires a year, it's building a mindset so that when they have that one, because I mean, if your department goes to 3 structure fires, say you got 80 people on your job and you go to your department goes to 3 structure fires a year, the chances of you getting one of those jobs is low. You know what I mean? So, I mean, being able to have this information at the ready, and I think it's definitely very beneficial what they're researching and how they're distributing the information versus when they started originally. But essentially, we are so separated from the victim. There's no consequence for inaction for us. And, it goes into what you were just saying. I don't feel the problem. My TPP rating is not going to put me in trouble, but absolutely the guy in pajamas is going to have a problem, depending on how you use that nozzle and when you open it and where you put the water, and that's where the disconnect is for a lot of people, is that we're so well protected. We're more protected than we ever have been ever, and like I said, if you go back to that 1920s dude or the pre-SCBA guys, ask them how they fought fire, it would be very similar to where the gold standard is today, which I'm excited about.
Well, before Aaron Fields, I heard about Aaron Fields and took a class or anything of that. I didn't realize just how cyclical the fire industry was. And when I got to talk to Aaron, he basically said, look, what I'm doing is not new. Flowing and moving is not new. That's what they had to do their job pre-SCBA. For sure. And it just makes perfect sense. And so it's not like it's a new tactic or something like that. It's a time-tested, proven a model that some people like me before I knew about Aaron Fields thought was new, but it's not. And it's just, to your point, it's cyclical. When we got new gear and SCBAs, that really gave us a lot of latitude as an industry to have very specific tactics and strategies to your area. I'm not saying we don't now, but back then you had a wider berth of what you could do. And now, again, flowing and moving because of people like Aaron Fields and Jay Bonifield and Cal Romagus and people like you all. I always call them landscapers. You're changing the landscape of the fire service. And it's funny because it's rooted in the past. Your modern day and future fire service now that you guys go around teaching this stuff is rooted in the past. I think that's amazing stuff.
Yeah, I've got a slide in my Cruel Intentions class that I teach. It's about nozzle work. And the slide is all of my mentors that were able to bring me into my mindset of where I am. And at the very top of it, it says, this class has been brought to you by, and it's all these people, it's like a credits on the end of a movie, but that's who shaped my mindset, and was able to give me the red pill, so to speak, from the Matrix analogy. I was able to get that red pill from those dudes. And some of those guys aren't living anymore. Like I got James Braidwood on my slide, Lloyd Lehman. Brush was a big mentor of mine for a long time, still is. If you ever get a chance to take his 75 years of fire streams class, he talks about how cyclical the fire service is and why big dramatic changes in fire suppression or in the mindset of were made. And he links it a lot to wartime. So like when the war was over and the men came home, that's where you saw a very large change in the fire service. And it happened over and over and over again from World War I to World War II to the Afghanistan. You know, the 9/11 had a huge part of it. You know, but very awesome class. Probably one of my favorites was 75 Years of Fire Streams by Brian Brush. But, I mean, these people that you contact, they shape your mentality. They shape the ability to see different aspects of the fire service and how you speak about these aspects. You know, it's always good to reach out your comfort zone and start talking to guys all over the country. That's one of the biggest benefits of social media is the networking. So without social
there's a lot
media,
of benefits, but
for sure.
Yeah, but man, it's a shithole too, right? It'd be a real shithole.
That's like anything else, like a bar room. You know, there's the good guys at the bar and there's the bad guys at the bar. You know, but the difference is that at the bar I can grab you by your throat when you say something to me. Where social media, you can't. You know, if you just spoke to people as if they were across the table from you and within arm's reach, you would be way better off. You know, just speak to that dude like he's sitting in front of you right now. You know, and you would be way more. If you could
have some kind of thing on your computer that after you type something, you have a chance of a fist coming out of a machine and punching you right in the face, you would second guess what you type, right? You'd be like,
for sure,
maybe I won't type that.
Yeah, definitely.
Hey, listen, tell me a little bit about the Bro Drive. The Bro Drive. So when I found out about Kyle Romagus a couple years ago, I guess, heard the name, didn't know much about it. Then I started delving into it. And one of the, Smoothbore Cartel, all that stuff. But the thing that I really liked was this Bro Drive, the idea of a Bro Drive. Now, I don't have access to it yet. I'm hoping maybe I will.
Oh, yeah,
but tell us about the Bro Drive. Oh, sweet.
So the Bro Drive, a buddy of mine named John Bro, like bro as in the I hate to say it like this, but the coon-ass term. It's BREAUX. It's bro. So that's the reason it's called the Bro Drive. So a buddy of mine named John Bro, he was going for a lieutenant's test at his full-time department. And he called me one day and said, "Hey, man, I know you got a bunch of articles and a bunch of material, like fireground strategies." And he didn't have a whole lot of experience, and he was going for an officer's position and had the opportunity. And he wanted to know if I would build him like a small library of fireground tactics. And I was like, yeah, man, sure. So I built the Bro Drive off of that request and just started dumping things in it. And then I started sharing it with people all over the country after the fact, and they started sharing their libraries with me, and then other guys started sharing their libraries with me. So now it's just a compilation of firemen's libraries from all over the country, and there's like over 500 or probably more now people that it's shared with. But it's about 280 gigs. It's audio from lectures, videos, audiobooks, presentations, articles, books on PDF. It's probably the biggest collection of firemanship that I've ever seen. And it's not just me, it's the guys that contributed to it as well. And it's an unbelievable resource. And it's a bottomless pit of information that you could really, really go down rabbit holes in certain aspects of the fire service. And what I really like about it particularly is it's on a Google Drive platform. So like, how you can use the search feature in a PDF document? Like if you pull up a PDF and I want to see the word engine or nozzle, I can type that into the find feature. So most like collections of information, it only searches the title of that document. So if I wanted to, look up something with nozzle or 7/8 or, relay pumping, it would only pick up the title of that document if that's in the title. But with Google, it searches the entire document. So like for 280 gigs of information, most probably 90%, if not 95% of it's PDF format. If I want to know about relay pumping, I can type in relay pumping at the top of the Google Drive, and it will bring up every document that has the word relay and pumping in it, versus it just being the name.
What do you think is the most access thing from that? I'm sorry, we got a delay. I'm so sorry. I will try to fix this in editing a little bit, man. I'm truly sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries, man.
Go ahead, sir. Go ahead. Well, my question was this.
Yeah,
I did it again. God damn it. I'm gonna go. Let me go.
Yeah.
What's probably the most downloaded or researched thing on the Bro Drive?
Man, I can't see that because I wish I could, because then I would build more documents to fit that niche of what people are looking at, but I can't see that. I may be able to request that, from Google to see. But like when I share the drive with you, I share viewing rights. So I don't share editing rights with anyone. I did that once before, and I thought it all disappeared. So I used to share editing rights so that people could enter, new folders and dump in material. And I did that to one dude, and I gave him editing rights, and he moved everything. Like he moved every document and like restructured the folders. And in those folders, I didn't have access to those folders. So I opened the Bro Drive, and this time it was probably like 15, 20 gigs. It was early in the stages, and it was all gone. And I was like, oh, man, this is no good. So I called this dude because he was the last guy I shared it with, so it had to have been him. And I was like, hey, bro, what did you do here? And he essentially just organized it in a way to where it was a little bit more feasible for him, but I did not have access to the new subfolders that he made. So it looked like it all went away. So I don't do that anymore. So now I just give people viewing rights. So you can view anything in it. You can search anything in it and download anything in it, but you can't move anything. You know what I'm saying? Like you can't rename documents or move anything from somewhere else. And if somebody wants to put something in it, I just tell them to share the folder with me, and I just copy it into the Bro Drive. So like if Barnes was going to share me his library, I would have you share that folder with me, and I would just copy it and put it in the Bro Drive. So you didn't put it in there. I did, but you gave it to me first. You know what I'm saying? So I don't give people editing rights anymore.
What's the most requested thing that people have told you about? Like, hey, man, I love that Bro Drive. I love his special. Is it probably the Book of Andy, you think?
That is pretty well distributed and also very controversial. But yeah, that's probably the most distributed document out of it, I would think. And the most requested, I would say you're correct. So everywhere I teach, the very first slide in any of my presentation is the cover page of the Book of Andy. And I always ask people whether they have a copy of it or not. And then I tell them that I can get them one. And that leads me down a rabbit hole of the PDF copy that was generated years ago. And then it's kind of like the hook. I throw the hook out with the Book of Andy, and then I pull back the rod, and then now they're sucked into 280 gigs worth of information, and they just, 10 toes in dive, but I really like the platform it's on with Google Drive. I really like the ability to search. So like if you're looking for something in particular, like like drafting, let's just say drafting, you could type in drafting at the top of the Bro Drive, and it would bring up every document that has the word drafting inside of it. So it's a pretty good program.
So what's the controversy with the Book of Andy? I've not read it yet. I definitely plan to, especially if I get access to the Bro Drive. That's one of the first things I want to download. So what's the controversy with that particular piece? Or do you not want to talk about it? That's fine.
I can. Yeah, I just got to be careful. So
fair enough.
There's a lot of articles in there from fire publications that he wrote for that are duplicated in the Book of Andy. So Andy Fredericks, obviously fireman from FDNY, he was a lieutenant, died at 9/11. He wrote a lot of articles for different publications. He wrote for Fire Nuggets. He wrote for Fire Engineering. He wrote for several different publications, and it is a compilation of all his work in one. And there has been contention about the copyright of that material and being distributed. And that's one of the biggest issues that I've found. And I've got cease and desist letters from very large companies for some of the stuff that's in the Bro Drive or in the file section. I've had requests to bring, because in ECR, I've got a file section as well that has a lot of information in it. And I've gotten some requests from some pretty large corporate companies to pull some stuff out of there, and cease and desist letters. And thankfully, no subpoenas yet. But
knock on wood.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, man, because I would rather, it seems like some people would rather see the information die than to be distributed at a large scale to people. It's all about, it seems, I can't say it is all about the money, but it seems to be about the money for some people. And I just want to make firemen better. Like you said at the beginning of this thing, I want to leave it better than I found it, and I've got so many positive, messages and thank yous from people that have caused real culture change in their fire department at either the battalion level or the crew level or an individual level or a department level, that it's worth the possible negative aspects of distributing that much information for free, but it may end all one day. I may end up in cuffs one day, who knows? But I like the ability to make people better. And even if it's not me directly doing it, I don't want to travel the country as a consultant and go fire department to fire department. But if I can foster change in one guy, and I don't know if you're a religious guy or not, but the running rule at church is bring one, just bring one,
right?
Bring one every Sunday. It's like fire conferences. Just bring one guy. If I could change the mind of one guy at a fire conference, that leads to 2 guys, and that 2 guys leads to 4 guys, and that 4 guys is a shift, and that shift leads to battalion change, and battalion change leads to department change, and it's just an infection that you can spread out through the fire service. And I've gotten way more positive feedback than negative, although I have gotten some negative from some very prominent people. But
shit.
Yeah. Well, anytime you put yourself out there, man, you're going to have both sides of the coin, but way more positive than negative, I would say.
So you kind of touched on this just now, so I'll ask you. So you're now the battalion chief of training. Even before you were the battalion chief of training for your department, we also talked on air before we started recording that I told you about Brian Zeitz, and he always says, 500 miles in a suitcase makes you an expert. 5 miles in a white helmet makes you an idiot. So being a very well recognized person in the fire industry because of your passion to make the entire, not just your department better, but the industry better. How well is your message received at your home?
I would say that it's well received at my department. I'm actually revamping the recruit training right now and changing a lot of how business has been done over the years, specifically with, like, let's just say VES. VES has totally changed at our fire department in this process. And I'm meeting some resistance and ego with it because a lot of guys are very comfortable with the way that they perform fireground tasks. And it's, it takes a conversation with most. You got to be careful at how you distribute information to your people. You can't just give them the how and not the why. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, you can't just throw down a skill sheet on the desk and be like, here it is, deal with it. This is how you're going to be doing business. You have to explain the positives of the change. You can't just change just for the sake of change. You know what I mean? There has to be a positive reason why this change is happening. And I try to do my best in the position that I'm in now to take the time to explain the why so that the how is soaked in a little bit easier. And it's easier for them as the captain to deliver. Because, if I was just to give you a new sequence of operation without any reasoning why or the positive benefits of, and say, okay, teach your people how to do this. This is how we're going to be doing business now. You don't have the buy-in enough to explain that in a way to where you could gain buy-in from your people in some aspects. You know what I mean? So, if I sit down with the engine captain and I explain to him, this is the new process, this is why this is the new process, and here are the positive results of this new process, and get them on the same page of why things are being delivered the way it is. And then it's an extension of the training division now. Now I've got a recruit from the training division as an engine captain to help infect, the fireground.
Right.
So I would say yes and no. You're always going to touch different subjects that are ego driven for some people. You're going to find that nerve and you're going to just poke it a little bit, and then you'll be able to see the after effect of what that actually does. And I've found that nerve a couple times since November when I took over.
So let me ask you this. I think now you were all engine at one point, right? Now you're a quint. You got a quint in the process as well?
Yes, sir. So we're starting to develop a ladder company culture. Started with a quint, hopefully goes to a true truck one day when we have more resources at our at our disposal. But right now, like if we end up running a dual house out of that station, I would see that being a good time to go to a true truck, no pump, no water, but right now we don't have the resources to where we could run a true truck company, but we're slowly moving that direction.
Well, when you teach the quint and probably when you teach the truck, when you get there, is it difficult for you to talk to a truckie and have to speak so slow and use one syllable words?
Oh man. So thankfully, we're new into the Truckee Mindset with the ladder company, but we do have some guys that are going all in with it. That, you just have to bring them back down to earth sometimes and make them realize that if you're first due, I'm sorry to tell you this, but you're an engine first due.
Yep.
You come in second or third due, you can do all the truck stuff you want. But if you're first due and there's black and orange rolling out of this joint, somebody's pulling a line off that truck. I'm sorry to tell you, whether that's your driver or your fireman, you're an engine right now, and that's been a tough transition for some of these guys. It's the joke that I got from my buddy Shannon Stone. It's the ladder that don't matter. It's the ladder with the bladder, a trenching.
Yeah, ladder with the bladder. I just heard that not too long ago. I was having a quint truck talk with somebody, and they said the ladder with the bladder. I said, that's goddamn brilliant. I like that.
Yeah. And truck work needs to happen.
Well, and plus it does, let me say and, not but. Yeah. It has to happen, and truckies don't put out fire, and it says on our patch, fire department, firefighter. Yeah. Just saying. Yeah. Just keep that in mind. So I'm not – who was it? I think it was Snodgrass that said that truckies are the gentlemen of the fire service. They open doors for the heroes.
Yeah. It's like a glorified butler. Right this way, Mr. Engine Man. Yeah, the only thing he doesn't do is carry my bags for me. If I can get him to carry my bags for me, it'd be way better.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I obviously I've been on a couple truck companies. It never sat well with me. I didn't have the bug like a lot of these guys. So whenever I have to teach anything truck related, I try to, as much as I can, use subject matter experts in my department that are way better at it. But yeah, we have two quints, but we call one a truck and one a quint. And then we run one as a truck. The other one we run, to your point, first in, you're an engine company. We have one. So I don't know why we do what we do. I'd like to give you a good answer for that. But yeah, I get it. I totally get it.
Yeah, I think truckies, majority of the ones that I've taught. So I got some really good friends that are very experienced truck officers. And I think more so the inviting aspect of it is the independence. The independence of being able to be free to wander, I guess you could say. And you're not anchored down like David Rhodes was talking about the other night on the scrap, is that I'm not anchored. I don't have a hose line that's anchoring me. I can be free. I can be free to move about the building everywhere and anywhere I want to go. And I think that's inviting for a lot of people, which is cool. It needs to be done. We were in engine company culture since 1962 when my fire department was established. Obviously, I wasn't around back then, but we have not had a ladder company up until now, which has been about 2.5 years now, almost 3. So we did truck work every fire. It was just done by an engine. And I like the ability now to start moving into a separation of the engine and truck culture, because we order, and it goes down to spec, it goes down to apparatus. The mindset is the hardest thing to change right now, and it's a slow burn. But we started with the spec of the engine, so now our new spec on our engines is an engine. It's not a rescue engine anymore. There's no coffin compartments. It's a low hose bed. There's only minimum equipment on it because if you need the toolbox, you call the toolbox. I don't need every aspect of my apparatus to be a toolbox, so now and I think it will come with pride, will come with that in the pride of the actual shift and crew of that apparatus, because now you are only this. You don't have to be the jack of all trades is the goal. We're not there yet, but that's the goal is to, specialize the staff on that apparatus in that aspect, but we're not at a point to where an engine, it's not impossible for an engine should show up third due and given the assignment to vent. We're not there yet. Maybe one day when we've got 3 truck companies, operating, but, everybody has to be skilled at every aspect, because my command staff is not going to suspend a fireground action due to the company that arrives. You know what I'm saying? So like, I'm not going to suspend ventilation if it needs to be done just because I have an engine rolling down the street. I'm going to send those guys to the roof. That's where we're at, and that's where we've always been. And I don't see us moving away from that culture anytime soon. We're heading that direction, but, we're not going to suspend an action. Like, I'm not going to suspend the search because it's an engine pulling down the driveway and not the ladder company.
Right.
You know what I mean? So we're just not there yet.
One of my favorite articles by Nick Peppard is the long and short of it. Are you aware of that article?
Yes. I think it's in the drive.
Love that article. Huh?
I think it's in the drive. The bro drive.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I just love the idea. It kind of goes along with what you're saying. You're stretching to put the fire out, but you can also search at the same time. The division of fire service being it's just truck work or it's just engine work anymore. Well, it started with Quince, I guess. It started to kind of meld together a little bit, and then it seemed like it was separating again. But now I've noticed in more articles I've read and more people I've talked to that it's kind of being all mashed up one more time, which is good and bad. I can see that. Now, you obviously love some smoothbore, solid stream stuff. So tell me a little bit about Smoothbore Cartel. Big fan.
So Smoothbore Cartel is a retail company that my buddy started. He was a battalion chief at my fire department. He started it. And the reason for the first patch that was ever made is that when we went all smoothbore and low pressure attack packages, we were kind of like the redheaded stepchild of our county at that point. We were, and we still kind of are. And they kind of forced us into being our own thing. So, I mean, that's where the idea of the Smoothbore Cartel came from, was that we were kind of shoved in our own little area of our county when that decision was made. And I didn't make the decision to move to smoothbore initially. It was my fire chief, Howard Reinwald, made that decision. He was the first one to lead us down that path of low pressure and fat droplet and more efficient engine work, essentially, was the goal at that point. Because we spent a lot of our time trying to emulate the city of Houston because they're close to us. And like everybody, you try to emulate the large, urban fire department near you that you deem as successful. Everybody does that. Guys who are next to FDNY emulate FDNY. Guys that are near Chicago do what Chicago does. And then LA County, they do what LA County does. And we found out through a lot of smoke plumes over sunrises that we can't do what they do. We don't have 65 guys on a first alarm, so I can't just continually send firemen into a building, never open a nozzle, and just tell them to roll around. The fire goes out. So I run out of people before I run out of jobs on the fire ground. That's my reality. So he moved us in the direction to make engine work more efficient and faster, and seconds obviously count, and we started moving towards that direction. And that led us down the path of low pressure, high quality hose, the large droplet. It led us down that path, and then Smoothbore Cartel kind of was birthed out of our isolation in our respective area here. So I was traveling the country at the time when all that went down, and the patch was the black and white original Smoothbore Cartel patch was the very first one, and then a couple decals. And I told him, I was like, man, I travel all around the country and I could push this. But what I want from you is I want you to give me some kickback on the sales of this product so I can send guys to training all over the country. I want to build a fund to where I can find a guy that can't afford to fly across the country and get a hotel room and register for a conference. And I want to send that guy. It's like we were talking about earlier, I just need one. So if I can get one in the mind frame to changing culture, that breeds two, and two breeds four, and four breeds a battalion, and so on and so on. So that's the way I started getting involved with Smoothbore Cartel. And then it got to a point to where it got too big for him to manage, the shipping of the orders and everything. He's got a lot of kids at home, big family man. And he was like, man, I just can't handle this anymore. And I want to sell the company, but I don't want to sell the company to anybody but you. I want to give you first crack at it. So I bought the company, and then now all the profits after restock has been purchased, all the profits go into the I guess you could say it's a scholarship fund that I can send dudes to training all around the country. And how I do that is I pick certain personnel, or someone contacts me and says, hey, I got this guy that works for me. He's so ate up with the job, but he doesn't have the funding, to go to, the West Coast to go to a truck conference or whatever. And then I'll sponsor that dude to go. And then half the guys may not even know I did it, but I'm using that money in order to breed success and mindset change and culture change all around the fire service. So that's the long and the short.
That is amazing. But what in the fuck is in the water in your area? Because Jacob Johnson does something very similar, doesn't he? Yeah. You guys really, truly put your money where your mouth is. People can talk brotherhood all day, and they're not wrong for doing it. But I'm sorry, there's a different tier of firefighter when they care and they talk brotherhood, but now they're putting money in people's pockets that can't go to these bigger conferences. And I think that's amazing, man. Good on you. But what is it in that area? I mean, you got Mo Davis, you, Devin Craig, Dave Mellon. The list goes on and on. What is so – now, I cut my teeth in Texas as a firefighter. I was in Wichita Falls. Uncle Sam said, you're moving to Wichita Falls, which if anybody gets a chance to go and vacation, go anywhere but Wichita Falls. But there is something about Texas firefighting. So tell me about that. What the fuck is up with that?
Man, I don't know. I think it may be the culture that's in Texas, helping your neighbor, but I mean, I don't know. And it's infectious, helping people is infectious. So everybody you just mentioned are very good friends of mine, and they all have the same mission, and it's to make the fire service better, and it's really not hard to do. So, I mean, if I essentially what I started doing was just setting a goal. I have a goal of, because the registration for the hotel is set. The registration for the conference is set. The only question mark is airfare. That's the real question mark as to where this person's coming from. You know what I mean? And so, I mean, you build in some cushion for that. And then you just essentially, what I did for a long time before I started getting funding from Smoothbore Cartel is I would contact vendors and then get them to donate products like an axe or a Halligan, or, I had a really good relationship with Fire Mall for a while. They would give me their grip kits and T-shirts, and I would just sell raffle tickets. I've got 15 prizes, and I'm going to sell, let's say if I got $3,000 for my total that I need to make this happen, I'll divide that between however many, like 50 raffle tickets or whatever, and I'll sell the tickets for that, and then give all the swag away, and then at the very end, I've got my goal, and I pick one of those guys that bought the raffle ticket to just bail. Now you're going to, Water on the Fire or Firemanship or Oathkeepers, or some conference somewhere. It's really not hard to come up with the money. It's just you have to have that mindset in order to put something or a goal above yourself. You know what I mean? You got to make time for it. And there's just so many guys in Texas that have that mindset for some reason. I don't know.
Well, I got a challenge for you then. You got to think about this. Rarely am I wrong unless you talk to my first and second wife. But if you listen to me, I'm almost never wrong. So this is going to be a good fucking idea. You and all your Texas cohorts should probably challenge the Pacific Northwest and get Bonneville and Fields to knock all those guys involved and see who can get the most money to send the most firemen to whatever conference you all choose.
That'd be pretty cool. And the conference.
Now I know FDIC is coming. Yeah, there's so many micro conferences, and when I first got in the fire service, everything seemed to be fire schools, very regional, but it was awesome, right? Yeah. And then you saw the rise of FDIC up through the ranks to what it is now, which is a fantastic conference. Don't get me wrong; it could be a little pricey. And now these micro conferences, you get the same heavy hitters, the same industry leaders for a lot less. North Florida Fire Expo is one of them with Nick. So I think that's a great thing for the fire service. And I think people like you and Jacob Johnson and everybody out there that I don't know yet that does that, they're keeping true to the fire service, the true brotherhood. Brotherhood's, it's an easy word to say, and it's a very difficult thing to live up to. And you guys are obviously doing that.
Yeah. And you got to do it in a way to where, cause I mean, you're always going to have haters, anything you do, but you got to do it in a way to where it's not about you, and I think everybody that you've mentioned so far has been very good at doing things for others without, promoting themselves at the same time, because it could be misconstrued easily, and it's kind of tough because you want to get people interested in helping other people. And in order to do that, I may have to sell tickets to something, but the benefit of that is I've got all the receipts, so if anybody, and I've had messages back and forth with guys it's funny because it's always the guys with the fake profiles that reach out and they're like, oh, you're making money off the fire service. And I'll send, because I did everything through PayPal. So when you do everything through PayPal, everything is tracked and you've got a log of everything you made off of it and what you spent off of it. And what I would do is I would wait for those jackasses to send me a message, and then I would just screenshot the log because it's all through enginecompanyresurrection@gmail.com is the PayPal for it. And then essentially I would just screenshot the log and be like, all right, man, I made $3,000. I spent $3,000. What else you got? I don't know what else that I could tell you. That's exactly what I spent exactly what I made off of it to send this dude to this conference. I don't know what else you want from me. And then that usually shuts them up.
Can I offer another option? So that's good and all, but I think it's more fun in the fire service. I learned one valuable thing in the firehouse, especially. It's way more fun to stir shit up. So here's my recommendation. Again, never wrong. Sure. You should go ahead next time somebody sends that to you, take a picture of you inside a Lamborghini and send them that.
Yeah. Life's good.
Saying. Life's good, motherfucker. Next.
Yeah, that's right. You got any more?
All right, brother, listen. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, send him like a fog. Have a fog nozzle in one hand and be like your hand on the Lamborghini.
Yeah, dual pistols.
Give him a big wink. That's exactly it. Fuck them. You can't stop people, dicks from being dicks, man. That's just how it is.
Yeah, haters are out there, man.
And it's like they make money on it. Being a dick is like they make money on it. Like, man, this guy is doing something. He's out there, and I don't like it. Come on, dude. Join the train. Get on the train and help us all.
Can't all be winners.
Now, hey, the world needs ditch diggers too, Buck.
That's right.
So tell me a little bit. I want to wind up here. I've heard you talk about this before, and I've heard you talk about a lot of things before, and I just don't have enough time to bug you. And I purposely leave stuff off of this podcast, so you're going to feel obligated to come back and maybe talk about Vincent Dunn and Brannigan and all that. But I want to end on Chief Lehman. So Chief Lehman, to me, is probably one of the more, at first it wasn't, but now I see it, the benefit of hindsight, is one of the more misunderstood characters in the fire service. He's almost portrayed as the villain anymore in the fire service. So who better to ask than Kyle Romagus? So tell me a little bit about Chief Lehman, maybe some of the stuff that people are misconstruing about him.
So not only just him, but, Royer and Nelson and, all the guys from that era, they contributed more than they get credit for to the fire service. We would not have, it was like the birth of the UL study. Their studies that they did making the fire flow formulas in that era is still being used today. It's not all fog related. You know what I mean? A lot of that stuff it came from experiments of them, burning houses down and using different streams of different sizes and different flow rates to figure out a rough estimate that led into the fire flow formula. And the unfortunate aspect of a lot of their writings is they've been misconstrued and misinterpreted. And the level of understanding for some people is not what was intended. It's like the indirect attack, so to speak, now is misconstrued by a lot of people of what the actual intention of it was. So Lehman came from the Coast Guard, and when he came back from the war, he moved into the firefighting realm of structural firefighting, and all he had to go off of was what he knew, which was shipboard firefighting. And shipboard firefighting is a steel box similar to a burn building that did not have combustible walls and ceilings. And the mindset of the extinguishment of that fire was for the greater good. I want to put this fire out on this ship so the whole ship doesn't go down. And the easiest way to do that and the fastest way to do that is to isolate the area, shoot a small amount of water inside with the nozzle that they had available to them, which was the Navy nozzle, in this area, and then shut the door and let it steam itself out. That was the mindset of that damage control, essentially, is what the goal of that was damage control. And when you start moving that aspect into the structural realm, it gets a little muddy, because we're no longer thinking about damage. So like on the ship, if you've got 5 sailors in that area, like say you got a breach in the hull and you've got 5 sailors in that area, are they going to let the whole ship go down for the 5 sailors? Or do those 5 sailors understand that their sacrifices for the greater good? You know what I'm saying? So like that's the mindset of damage control from the military aspect in that arena. And once you start trying to pull that into the structural realm from the damage control aspect of the shipboard firefighting, it gets a little muddy in the delivery of that. Because, I mean, the funny thing about fighting fires in dwellings is they sometimes have dwellers inside of them, and we want to make sure that we're not causing more harm to the dwellers. And he actually, and us at the time, we did not have SCBA as a fire department, not we, because I wasn't there. And he details in his books, in his publications, that, the indirect attack with the steam is not to be used when firefighters or victims are in the actual present area. And he states that multiple times in his publications. And it's like people cherry-picked information from his publications and left that part out. You know what I mean? So, I mean, is the indirect attack with the steam method more efficient for water usage for that area? The debate could sway that direction, that you can use water more efficiently if it's not used greed-based like we use it, but you don't get the other positive aspects of water, which is preventing fuel from being ignited. I'm taking fuel and heat out of the triangle with greed-based water. So if I use water early and often and I soak down fuels that are not ignited at the present moment, I take heat away and I take future fuel away. You know what I'm saying? So, and that's a whole nother rabbit hole that we probably need another hour to talk about on that end. But just layman specifically, you're absolutely right, is that it was misinterpreted and misapplied by a lot of people. And he gets a lot of hate. He was, thought to be a snake oil salesman for a long time, and I've actually seen some memes with his face on the snake oil salesman from the 1800s, the wagon, but it wasn't Layman's fault, man. Layman was very detailed in what he explained and when and why those actions could be done. He never said this is how you should, but he always said this is how you can. And there was always something on the other side of the equal sign with Layman. And if this, then this. And his publications detail that, and a lot of people just don't read what's all included in that equation. And it's unfortunate, because him and Royer and Nelson, they all get a bad rap, but I think that they contributed way more to the fire service than a lot of people understand. And it's unfortunate. If you would just read the publication, and all 3 of his books are in the Bro Drive in PDF form, Lloyd Layman, so if people would just read the information and understand what his intent was instead of just cherry picking, they would realize what he contributed.
Well, I've got another theory, and you have mentioned multiple times on this podcast how I'm always right. Maybe it was me that said that, but I think I'll go ahead and believe you said that. Again, ego. But if you go back to Layman's publications, and you said, I'm using your words now, somebody picked and chose whatever they wanted to make their opinion work better. And it was a lot to read and difficult to read. I think we've already whittled it down to probably a truck guy. Don't like water, struggle with reading, boom.
Yeah, possibly, man, possibly. And, there's a time and place to use the small droplet in a wide pattern, and those are unoccupied areas. Balloon frame wall structure, knee walls, attic fires, unoccupied basements. There are lots of different ways, and you can't just focus in on, this is always going to be done this way, because the fire service is dynamic, but the thing you got to ask yourself before you choose a method of fire suppression is there a possibility that people could be inside this? And if there is, you need to attack that situation, so to speak, pun intended, differently than if there are no people inside. You know, like a knee wall versus a living room, I may choose a different tactic to extinguish the fire in those areas. I may choose the same, you know, but I have an option to choose the displacement of oxygen with a small droplet in those unoccupied areas. You know, and that's what Lehman was telling us, is that it's an option. It's not the way, it's a way. And if you're going to choose this way, this is a really good way to do that. You know what I'm saying? So like he never said this is the only way and this is what we should be doing all the time. What he said was, if you choose this method, let's explain how well it works in this aspect. You know what I'm saying? So, and that was misconstrued by a lot of people saying that this is the only way. And it's just like everything, you know, the UL studies that came out first with the transitional attack, there were people changing protocols, like large fire departments. I'm next to one of them, you know, with the Houston Fire Department that had protocol change. At the time, it was the third largest fire department in the country, said, you know, all water will come from the outside based on this, the initial water. And you got guys that got 40 years in the fire service that make 6 fires a day. They're like, do what? You know, we're going to do what now? And it's just wild, you know, and I wish with the UL stuff, and I understand why they did what they did, but I wish they would have acquired all information and then just boom, put it out instead of sectioning it out, because they only had certain aspects that were addressed in those studies, you know, so they give you a little bit here and then people would cause massive change in the fire service. And then a year later, this one would come out and some of that information would contradict what was in the previous study. Or not necessarily contradict on a lot of it, but isolate a situation where that tactic, you know, would be preferred. But that wasn't in the first study, you know. So, I mean, the first one comes out and then drastic change. And then the second one comes out and all you hear is the backup alarm, you know, the boop, 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 people bagging it up, you know. But I understand why they did what they did, you know, and I'm thankful for what they're doing and going to do for us in the future. You know, but people, you have to anticipate how people are going to read it, you know, and how people are going to change tactics because of it. And unfortunately, there's some people out there that will use certain tactics to justify poor decisions on the fireground.
Absolutely. One of the most misunderstood words currently in the fire service is transitional.
Yeah.
The
bad part about the transitional is the lack of the transition. You know, so a lot of people that they just don't follow through with the transition, you know.
Well, they don't want to. They'd rather say, oh, no, we don't fight fire from the outside, blah, blah, blah. Well, you can. I'm not saying you got to stay out there, but it's not, especially if you want, me personally, if you're going to have somebody do a 360 and they got a pipeman with them, right? And there's fire blowing out. Why would that pipeman not want to take the energy out of that fire until that captain gets back around and they can push inside? But transitional is just one of those words. People, they hear that and they think, oh, hit it hard from the yard. Oh, that's terrible firefighting.
And you got to teach your guys.
Transitional.
I'm sorry, man.
No, you're good, brother. Go ahead.
You got to teach your guys to recognize when that aspect of the arsenal, because it's a tactic. You know, you got to teach your guys when that would be beneficial. You know, and one of the things that I teach my guys is how the window looks in relation to the airflow. So if I have a bidirectional airflow in that window, meaning fire out, air in, that air coming into that room is coming from that window. If I have a full window that's nothing but exhaust, obviously the air is coming in from some other aspect of that room. Open door, open ceiling. You know, I would much rather them put water in an intake than an exhaust. So if I'm looking at a second floor window and I see the bidirectional flow coming out of that second floor window, I'm more likely to put water in that window than I am with a full exhaust window, because that fire could be deep seated. You know what I'm saying? Right. So like it could be coming from down the hallway and that's just the only exit point it has, but it's getting air from somewhere else. So I want my guys to use water in the intake. So, I mean, if you're going to use that tactic, get positive return on the investment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like don't wait, especially if I'm showing up with an engine with 750 gallons on it, and you're going to launch, say a 2.5. Let's just say we pull a 2.5. You're going to launch a 2.5 at 300 gallons a minute into a window. I want positive return on that investment. You know what I'm saying? So you got to teach guys how to recognize when that tactic would gain a positive investment. And one of the things I teach my guys is look for the bidirectional flow. If I've got bidirectional flow out of that upper window, that's a candidate, for water from the outside if you choose to do that. Versus a full exhaust, that's not necessarily it's a candidate. Any opening in a building is a candidate for water, but it's not a good one, in my opinion.
Not as good as the bidirectional, absolutely.
Correct. Yeah. So you just got to teach guys to think, man. I want guys to think. And the aspect of thinking and analyzing things on the fireground, fireground's mostly reactive. I see this, do this, but you can prepare them prior to that. Well, I see that and I'm not doing that there, but I see that and I'm going to do that there. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, it's a reactionary thing that you can build into their mindset, but there's another rabbit hole that we could go down.
So what we'll do is I'll just have you on every 3 months. That'll be it.
Yeah, whatever, man. Whatever. I like your scheduling program that you use for this. That's pretty awesome, man.
Oh, Acuity. Yeah.
Yeah. I like that.
And it's nice too, because like I go out of town to teach so much, I can put that in my Acuity, or actually it's actually tagged to my Google Calendar. So they cross-reference. So people can't sign up for podcasts if I'm out of town. I like that. It's very easy to use. Very easy.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, man.
Thank you. Well, brother, I've enjoyed the shit out of this. You the man. You've really, I think you're going to get a lot of pushback on all the Truckee jokes you made. I just want you to know I don't agree with them. I'm just the host.
Yeah, screw those guys.
Yeah, fuck those guys. No, I'm kidding. Love you guys. I'm gonna cut that part out though.
Yeah. Anybody who says they don't like truck work ain't never been hot. So the rooftop angels are necessary. I just don't want to do it, and they probably feel the same way about engine work.
Right. There are different. You can almost tell who's going to prefer to be on a truck when you get a new recruit class, and how they attack learning new stuff. You can tell that guy's just built for a truck. He's acting like, he has that truckie mentality already. I'm doing a new recruit class right now, and I've got somebody already. You could tell he loves to tear shit up. He's a big guy.
Just look for the selfie stick. If they got a selfie stick, they're probably, beelining for the truck.
Exactly. And have you noticed how all truckies don't smile in pictures? Have you noticed that?
Yeah, they got to look tough, man.
Yeah. That's why every time I take a picture, I try to go, like that. I'm not trying to be tough. I'm trying to be a goofy motherfucker. That's
right.
Kyle Romagus, thank you for giving me some of your afternoon time on this Saturday. You the man. I appreciate it. I'm going to stay in touch with you. I've got questions for you. I look forward to the bro drive. I might have an ulterior motive for having you on here, several, but one of them is definitely getting that bro drive.
For sure. And if anybody wants access, just send me a message through Smoothbore Cartel.
You the man.
Then I'll give you access to the brother. Yeah, man. Anytime, brother.
All right. Take care.
Yes, sir.